Welcome to Enlightened Omnivore, the monthly podcast that serves up a delicious mix of food, sustainability, and travel. I'm your host, Steve Sabaker, here to explore the wonders of mindful eating. Join me each month as I dig into the stories behind our food system, discover new ways to live sustainably, and embark on culinary adventures around the globe or right in your very own kitchen. Get ready to expand your palate and your mind, one bite at a time. This is Enlightened Omnivore, everything in moderation. So I'm here with Loren Pancha of Stemple Creek, and Loren and I have actually worked together a long time. It's been a few years since we've had the opportunity to chat, but certainly I've been a huge fan of his ranch, the work he does, and how delicious his meats taste. Loren, for folks who don't know you, could you paint a picture for us where you are in the world and what makes Stemple Creek Ranch special?
Absolutely, yeah. Our main ranch is about an hour north of San Francisco. It's 55 miles from the Golden Gate Bridge on the coast of California. So it's in northwest Marin County, and we're about 4 miles from the ocean, but we have a lot of cattle that actually look at the ocean. And I'm actually a fourth generation rancher, but my wife and I started Stemple Creek Ranch about 15 years ago. We reinvented the business. It was nothing like my family had done. And we started with the direct to consumer focus, which I'm sure we'll talk about more today. But yeah, so that's our brand. We do beef, lamb, and pork. And yeah, we're right here. We also have a wedding event space, and we have 4 farm stays, and we have honey, and we do a couple other enterprises. So we're doing a little bit of everything to try and keep going and stay in business.
That's fantastic. And I've heard you speak a lot over the years about your beef being grass finished, of course, which is something that when I started in the business was not as common, but now I think a lot of people are familiar with the benefits. Could you give us kind of a little bit of a taste of what you did differently after taking over the family ranch and how you changed how you raise your animals?
Yeah, so the main thing we changed was, 20 years ago when we came back and started managing this business or the ranch and buying it from my family, we started doing pulse grazing. So we'd move the cattle around more instead of having just set stocked certain animals that lived in certain fields year round. We started pulse grazing. We were rotating bigger groups of cattle around, and we were seeing results where we'd grow a lot more forage and higher quality forage by doing that. That was the main difference. And then we've added other enterprises by really growing our sheep operation, our lamb operation for wool and for lamb, and then also our pork operation.
What was it that made you change the way you guys raise animals? I think you've mentioned before to me, and the book Omnivore's Dilemma was a really important book to read, and it changed my perspective on agriculture. Tell us more how that book or other things that you experienced in the world of agriculture refined your operations and how you made changes.
Yeah, I think it's a really important question, Steve. And when you go back, like I really always loved agriculture, and growing up here, I thought I was going to be a full-time rancher, and after college, there wasn't room for me here economically. Like we couldn't afford to have another mouth eating off of the business the way it was. So we had to change things around, and we traditionally were price takers, where we'd raise all these cattle, we'd sell them one day a year, and whatever the market was that day, we'd get paid. And I was reading the book, The Omnivore's Dilemma, and I was like, there's the Bay Area wants this grass-fed, transparent, high quality. There's 6 or 7 million people here. There's another 20 million in LA. Like, why aren't we giving the consumer what they want? And the goal at the time was to just sell the animals that we raised on our ranch and survive. So it was kind of an economic motivator. Really, it's like, we can't afford to do this the same way we've done and expect different results, but we can change it out and actually charge the true cost of what it's taking to raise these cattle and know what our prices are going to be and know what our margins are going to be and be able to make a living, to be able to pay our employees a fair wage and give them benefits and give them 401k like a real company, not just necessarily an agricultural enterprise that was farming to do it one more day. So that's what kind of motivated us to start. And then we started and we got into it and we really understood the health benefits and the animal humane practice side of it. And it just kind of parlayed and our business went from, started at 10 animals to Last year we harvested a couple thousand beef, but our business is constantly evolving and changing. So last year we were like around 2,000. This year we're going to be around 1,300. But we're changing our go-to-market strategy a little bit to try and focus on higher margin places that actually can allow us to keep growing and hire more people and have do what's right, do it the hard way. We don't cut any corners. We do it the hard, honest, transparent way, which is, it feels really good for us, but it's also an expensive way to do it right now. So our products are usually a little bit more, they're fair price, but they're usually a little bit more expensive than something else you can buy at a grocery store.
Well, tell me a little bit more about how it's different. I mean, you talk about, a lot of my listeners know the difference between grass finished and grass fed beef, but maybe not how it's different for you as the rancher. So what are you doing differently that's adding that extra quality?
Yeah, so there's three main secrets to grass fed beef. One is you have to have really great genetics. Two is you have to have great feed year round. So they have to always have a good diet or good groceries, I say. And the third one is time. You have to let them mature. So you probably think about yourself, Stephen. I haven't seen you in a long time, but I see myself in the mirror every day now that I'm 50. And when I was 18, or you could use me as an example as like a 1-year-old steer, you could eat anything and you're still growing and you don't gain any weight. You might just gain muscle mass and bone. And that's the same way with humans as with animals. But then now that when I started turning like around 30, I'd eat the same thing I ate when I was 18 and I was getting a muffin top and a nice finish on me. Now that I'm 50, I'm like a perfect grass-fed steer because I have a lot of muscle and a really nice fat layer. And that's the same with the animals. It's like we need them to mature physically to be able to be good age, good marbling, pardon me, and also complex flavors. And then there's a point where it gets a little bit too long and you start getting tougher, and they say put them out to pasture, or a cow, like an old guy like me, it's like put him out to pasture, he's not going to be good anymore. But so it's age, good groceries, and good genetics are the three secrets for us on the grass finished deal. And those are not very secretive, but in order to get it done right, and management is difficult, especially when you're actually doing grass fed, which means you're actually like the cows are eating a living root out of the ground. So we become very nomadic. My wife and I, when we first started the business, she doesn't come from an ag background. And she said, I said, we can only do a seasonal product and it can only be in June, July, August, which is our main ranch in Tamales. And she said, but customers want fresh meat year round, so figure it out. So we now are nomadic, have cattle as far as Santa Barbara, all the way up into Oregon. And we're kind of teetering on sometimes getting into Washington, following the green grass. So as we dry up here, the cattle go on a field trip to the next pasture that's green further up. And so we harvest a lot of cattle right now out of Humboldt County and out of Shasta County, where the grass is green when it's dry in Tamales. And we just balance it and make it work. But we're always the other way to look at it is that if there was no fences here in California, where would the big, 500 years ago, where would the big herds of animals be, the wild animals? They'd be wherever the best grass was. So they might start Southern California, work their way to Northern California in their migration route, or they might start on the coast of California and work their way up into the Sierra foothills and then back down as the snow came. So we're trying to mimic that with different property ownerships and fences. And we're not doing it as perfect as Mother Nature will, but we're doing our best and we're adapting and changing every year and learning more. So I would describe us as nomadic beef ranchers that are raising cattle with grass to make them fat. And with that, you get a different terroir flavor. We really try to make them look like they're grain fed, but be grass fed. And that's by using those three secrets I was telling you about, as time, genetics, and good groceries.
And I'm wondering, when they're looking at the grocery store and they see grain-fed product, like what's the difference between the two? Like, I know, I mean, you're taking up to 30 months maybe to get these animals fat, and commodity beef is what, 12 to 15 months?
Yeah, 13 to 16 months. Yeah. Yeah. So traditionally we used to wean calves at 10 months old. They'd be about 700 pounds. We'd send them to a feedlot. 5 or 6 months later, they were harvested and they'd weigh 1,300, 1,350. and they were on a high concentrate diet. Like you'd say they're eating like Twinkies and Snicker bars and whatever else. If they were your kids, you'd be like, okay, but they're gaining a lot of weight in a short amount of time. But it's not necessarily that healthy for them. You don't see feedlot steers that are 3 years old or 4 years old because they'd be obesely fat and they'd probably die in the meantime, because it's not the diet that ruminants are made to enjoy. It's not enough or there's a lot more concentrates and carbs. So the way that we do it, it takes a minimum of 21, but usually 24 to 30 months before we get this really beautiful marbling. And there's a massive difference. The last 50 pounds is really important, or the last 150 pounds. So we can harvest an 1,100-pound animal that's 20 months old, and it'll be good, flavorful, nice, but it won't look marbled and like a choice or prime steak that you would see in a grocery store labeled as a prime. But if you let them get to 24 to 28 months on that same good feed, you can hardly tell the difference. People either love grass-fed beef or they don't love grass-fed beef based on the true flavor of the fat. And you can tell, I can tell right away if I harvest an animal that's been eating hay all winter instead of green grass, I can tell by the flavor and usually by the color of the fat. And we have some variation in our product year round because certain times of the year they eat a lot more hay so that we have a fresh product, which is stored grass. But anyway, it's really interesting. And like I say, we're just learning every day. We're still learning. And which I think is unique to the grass-fed industry, but we grade every single animal that goes through our harvesting facility. So we know if it's choice plus, prime, select, like we know that. We know how much back fat. And we use that data to select our bulls and to select the genetics and to know what works for our program or it doesn't work for our program in terms of flavor, tenderness, and the looks of the product. Because a lot of times people are just dialed in. It has to be marbled to taste good. But some of the best steaks I've ever eaten were not marbled at all. They were just amazing steaks. Yeah. So it's interesting. I'm still learning.
You've called yourself a beef rancher, a grass farmer, a soil farmer. What are you now, and why the different labels?
That's interesting. So I did grow up being a cattle rancher or beef rancher. And then about 15 years ago or 12 years ago, we signed up for the Marine Carbon Project and we were one of the demonstration sites. And so we were trying to prove that cattle aren't the problem creating global warming, where everybody talks about, oh, cows are bad, they poop and fart and they cause all these problems. That's really a bunch of bullshit, So pun intended. It's not really the cattle that are causing the problem. It's consumers, humans, burning more fossil fuel faster than what we're photosynthesizing. And so now I would almost call myself a photosynthesis farmer or regenerative farmer. We've been regenerative for years, but we were never called regenerative until it became a thing. We're regenerative ranchers now. As farmers usually till the ground, we're ranchers. We harvest it with animals. The whole point of that really is like, we want a living root in the ground year round so that the root and the plant are solar panels like they'd be on the side of your house in Southern California or anywhere else that you have solar panels. And they collect the sunlight and they photosynthesize, which means they grow, they photosynthesize, they pull CO2 from the atmosphere and they pump liquid carbon into the soil and it feeds all the microbes and bacteria in the soil, creates life there. And then at the same time, the plant grows, becomes green, and the cows come along, eat that, and stimulate that process to go around again and again. And that's nature's true carbon cycle. So before we were pumping liquid carbon from deep in the soil in the form of oil and burning it really quickly by driving around and transporting food thousands of miles, that's not going to stop, but we just have to understand the facts. Like we're doing that faster than we're photosynthesizing. And some of the best soils in the world are getting paved over. They'll never photosynthesize again, or getting houses built on them. They'll never photosynthesize again. So it's really important to support ranchers like me, in my opinion. This is the basis of our story. Like we're photosynthesis regenerative farmers. We're trying to capture all that, pull as much carbon out of the ground as fast as possible to create a high quality nutrient dense product that the cows harvest.
And you mentioned the Marin Carbon Project. Are you still part of that project?
I'm part of the project because we were the initial data set for the project, and they used a lot of our data. The project is still out there, but it's really adapted. It was originally like compost. If you apply compost, this is going to heal the soil and you're going to sequester so much more. Now there's like 26 different practices that help sequester carbon. So it's like fencing riparian areas and planting trees and rotational grazing and adding water, like all of these other things that are vital to cattle or sheep or other ruminants, harvesting forage and helping with the carbon cycle. I just want to bring this analogy to you, Stephen, because you live in Southern California still?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, so I remember like growing up, like the smog over Southern California, or in certain parts of the Bay Area or Sacramento, there was smog. And China, obviously, there's tons of smog. And I always bring this analogy back to people because it's really, there's so many people that get confused with the facts, and the facts are what's created. They've created, somebody wrote about in an article or a journal or a peer-reviewed study about, okay, cows emit this much, of this and this much of this. But the fact is, what happened during COVID? Everybody quit driving, right? Everybody stayed in their house. And what happened to the skies during COVID? The skies above LA, the skies above China, what happened?
Clear blue.
Clear blue. But what did not happen is we did not go kill every cow in the country, and we did not quit doing feedlots. We did not quit raising grass-fed beef. We did not do any of that. If anything, we upped it to provide food for people. Consumerism and people and driving and all that is the problem. So it's just, I love to bring that point up because it's irrefutable common sense if you're paying attention. It's not something that's written in a vegan agenda propaganda book about cows are bad, you shouldn't eat living animals, so I'll pick that fight every day because it's such bullshit.
I totally hear you. And I've written a lot about the myths of beef. I feel like folks can understand it when they actually sit down and think about it, but there is so much messaging out there that challenges the natural order of things. When if we just look at the fact that, even before we were here, there were just as many animals out enjoying that grass that you're getting.
Yeah.
You're
and that's the natural carbon cycle. It's the natural carbon
Exactly.
cycle. It's not okay to take it out of balance by pumping liquid carbon, ancient carbon, and burning it.
Yeah.
Which I drive a diesel truck. Like, I'm not saying it's going to stop. There's all these consumer things, but that are normal. But what we can vote with the food that we eat to get nutrient dense, high quality food that's trying to regenerate the soils and build more soils. That's what we're trying to do.
So how is the recent political climate, the tariffs, is that going to change things for you guys?
I hope so.
More competitive?
Our costs are really, really difficult to control in this market, especially because of rising food inflation and labor and fuel and everything. Our costs are really, really high, especially in California. But I think that the tariffs could potentially be good. Like, I'd rather people be eating grass-fed regenerative raised beef from New Zealand. This is a big statement. I'd rather they be eating grass-fed regenerative meat from New Zealand that's a little bit cheaper than they're eating corn-fed, highly GMO, all the antibiotics, ractopamine, all that stuff in there. I'd rather they eat it from New Zealand that traveled 6,000 or 8,000 miles than eat the other stuff. But there's no reason to do that. Like, you got to vote with your dollars and support people like me. There's tons of really good producers out there in the US. Find a local rancher or find some company that you like ours, and we'll ship it to you. And you can enjoy high quality meat that raised the right way and what we consider the right way. And, that's gotta be better for the environment. And I kind of feel like eating is an act of karma. If you eat cheap, not well produced food, it's not a good karma for your body or for society or for your community. And there's really a lot to be said about how you eat and coming together and eating high quality food. Maybe eat a little bit less of it, but have high quality, nutrient dense food.
Well, why is it so much cheaper over in Australia than here to raise grass-finished beef and ship it across the country? Because I've been to your operation. I know you guys work really hard. You're committing as much to the process as you're getting out of it. What is it that makes Australian beef more affordable or at least more competitive price wise?
I think it's the value of the dollar, all the employee costs. They don't have any other markets to produce to, but it's really just the cost of doing business is so much cheaper over there, and their grass resources. I mean, Australia and New Zealand does not have, they have one city in New Zealand that's 2 million people of the 4 million people on this huge island, these two islands. Like the US, we're tilling a lot of our farm ground. It's still very agrarian in those places. And the cost of living is so much cheaper in those places, and the value of the dollar is so much more. Here, like they can take a product there that they can produce and send it here and get a lot more margin because of the value of the dollar.
Yeah. I was just recently reading an article about agrivoltaics. And I don't know if you're familiar with this, but there's out in the desert, there's a bunch of places now raising goats and sheep, and they're putting up solar panels to kind of shade the ground. They can then water it, it doesn't evaporate, and they're actually grazing the animals on solar fields. Have you guys looked at anything like that? I know you get a lot more clouds over there on the coast. You're outside of Petaluma, which is beautiful. If
Yeah.
anybody has a chance to go check out the ranch, it's amazing. Have you guys ever looked at anything like that, putting out solar panels?
Yeah, we're always looking at new creative ways to create revenue for the business. It's one of those interesting things where we live in the Bay Area in a very wealthy county, Marin County, one of the top 2 or 3 wealthiest counties in the US. But also with that comes the like not in my backyard mentality of, they don't want, a lot of the people live here don't want windmills and don't want solar panels. So there's a lot of regulation around that. Our land is all protected by Marin Agricultural Land Trust. So that means we can never subdivide it and split off lots of acreages or whatever. It's going to be in agriculture in perpetuity, which is really important to me. But it's also potentially a negative to me in some ways. I can't put in a solar field, even if I wanted to, legally, because my malt easement will not allow us to. But I have friends in other parts of the country. White Oak Pastures, Will Harris in Georgia, he's got big solar fields that he grazes, and it's actually very beneficial because they're harvesting sun. There's different ways to do it, and I love it. I love it that he's able to do that. We haven't done it here yet. We have solar for our own use. We have 5 solar pumps that pump from our wells and springs and ponds to get the water moved around to the cattle. And then we have solar pumps that are offset for our living structures, but we don't have any commercial solar here. I'm a fan of it. In some ways, I'm not a fan of it, but I mean, we're going to keep adapting and changing and learning. And yeah, I'm open to grazing under solar. I think it's a good idea. And here's one other thing, so I'm not an engineer, and I'm more of a businessman and an entrepreneur, but we have a seasonal drought here in Tamaulipas, California, or Mediterranean climate. So half the year it rains, half the year it doesn't rain, and we dry up. But we have real foggy summers, as you were alluding to. So I was thinking about, is there a way that you can, hopefully one of your engineers listening to this podcast is like, okay, let's come up with this. Is there a way that you could create like a fog netting or fog solar panel that when the fog comes in, it catches on that panel and it drips onto the ground to the point where it's actually irrigating the pastures, and then you can graze under that solar from it, or you get, fog catchment, water irrigation catchment. I think there's some cool technology that you don't know what you don't know, and I'm not smart enough to figure it out, but I know that there's 100% humidity in the sky and the ground could be bone dry. Yeah. So there's a way that we could do this, because we can grow an amazing amount of forage here if we have water in the summertime and fall. How do we do it? Is there a capital way to do it? Is it too expensive to do? I'm sure there's a way to do it, but that's just the way my brain thinks. And yeah, I don't know.
There was another controversy up there in Marin, I think around Point Reyes and ranching. Is the community around you supportive of the kind of agriculture you guys are doing?
Yeah, the community is very supportive. The Point Reyes situation is kind of a political hot button. It's unfortunate to see what's happening there. It's not directly affecting me because I don't graze there, but it is sad to see us losing like 30% of the agriculture in Marin County, which is already a small agricultural space. But it kind of is inevitable because those ranches were all bought through eminent domain almost 50 years ago, 60 years ago. I think it was under the Kennedy administration, and the ranchers were paid to sell their property, and they took that money and reinvested it or did whatever they did, and they had 25-year leases. After the first 25 years, they've been there for another 25 or 30 years. And so if I'm friends with a lot of the people out there, real good friends. And if I'm them on a purely financial basis, it's really not a bad deal. But on an emotional basis, it's a bad deal because these farms or ranches have been there for 120 to 150 years, and it sucks to leave your heritage, especially when you're doing well. Right now, if somebody offered me the same deal that those guys, those farmers, ranchers out there had, where you buy my ranch, I could lease it for 50 years at a very affordable rate, and then you're going to pay me to leave in 50 years, I would probably say yes. Because it's pretty good economically, it's a pretty good thing for the farmer rancher.
Well, and that's a great point because, I mean, ranching is not as lucrative as a lot of people think it might be. And it's really a passionate business. It's an emotional connection to the land. I see that every time I talk to you and I talk to other farmers and ranchers. And it's something that's in your blood, right? I mean, coming from a multi-generational farming, ranching family, how did you navigate honoring the traditional practices of the past and the things that you grew up with the new practices and implementing the new innovations that you guys have applied to Stemple Creek and others have done in regenerative ranching?
I mean, I think the honoring the past is still just doing our best to dance with Mother Nature and produce high quality food and not create unintended consequences, and like paying attention to the soil and making sure the place is better for the next generation. But we've basically broken every paradigm there was about business on this ranch in order to survive. And you just keep doing the same thing over and over and over, expecting different results. It's pretty tough, it's pretty tough. And I appreciate you acknowledging that it's a marginal business, because if you look at agriculturalists, very few agriculturalists are rich because of the products that they sold. Some are filthy rich because of the land that they've owned and sold as real estate by the square inch, like in Southern California. But it's not because, like, if I just sold everything, I'd be pretty damn sad, because the ranch is worth millions of dollars, but it doesn't even generate 1% of what its value is. And for me, it's not about, I don't want to sell this place. This is like part of my soul. And a big challenge for me in the future here, Steve, is I'm 50 now. I'm not a young agriculturalist anymore. And I want to pull up the 20-year-olds that were like me, that have a big passion in their belly. I have friends and nephews, and they're making hundreds of thousands of dollars in their 20s working for AI companies and other things. They work 20, 30 hours a week. And why would they want to leave that to come here to have calluses on their hand and, struggle to make it? I had a passion in my belly, and I wanted to turn this into something good to keep the next generation going. And my parents were fortunate enough that they had a child like me that was willing to leave a high-paying job to come home and make hardly anything because I'm passionate about it. But it was also, it's now bigger than what I ever expected it to be in terms of a brand. It's not a huge brand. It's still a very small brand, but it's bigger, and it allows us the ability to help other ranchers and teach them what we're doing or how we've done it. They don't have to do it. There's still lots of producers that would rather not do it. But if I can find one or two or three or five younger men or women like myself that like a challenge and they want to raise high quality food and they're willing to do it, I'd encourage it. I think it's great. And I think it's the way of the future. And it scares me that there's not a lot of those kids out there yet, but I'm starting to see, I do have some that are very interested in it. So,
well, that was my next question, was kind of, is there a future for regenerative agriculture? I feel like what you do is amazing. And when I was in the business, more actively, I met so many different ranchers who had similar stories of taking family businesses and having to adapt and having to evolve and innovate and create really high quality products. Are you seeing young people showing an interest still? Because when I was in the business in the 2014 to 2022, we always had lots of eager, wide-eyed folks, and they'd come and work for a couple of weeks for us at the butcher counter, and then be like, "Oh, this is tough. I don't know if I want to do
Yeah,
this." And wait,
yeah.
that's my paycheck? Do you feel like the economics and the excitement are still strong enough to keep people engaged in regenerative agriculture?
I think that's the big challenge right there. Is like I have people like that all the time. Like, hey, we want to start a pastured poultry project, and then they come and they move the poultry houses one time. They're like, oh hell no, we're not doing this to make 18,000 a year because I don't want to pay them by the hour. I want to just make them a partner and say, okay, this is your project, let's do it. And you understand the economics of it. You like I have the land, you have the working ability, I have the capital, let's go. And there's not a line of people knocking down the door that want to work hard. But I also think that there is some, and the bigger going to get bigger, like always. But we're actually, I don't think I've told you this yet, but we are Stemple Creek Ranch Incorporated, one company. And in July, we're splitting it up, and we're gonna have Stemple Creek Ranch, which is the ranching side, and we're gonna have Stemple Creek Meat, which is the meat distribution side. And ranch will sell all of our products to meat, but we're also going to pull in other producers that we've had loose relationships with in the past that have produced for us and either give them equity or the opportunity to give them equity or employees to be able to give equity. So like our GM and some of the others that work for us are going to have the ability in a couple of years to be able to either get gifted some shares or buy some shares or whatever and be part of the brand and really feel like it's their company. And I think that's one way that we can pull in some of this younger excitement and see that you're part of this. It's not just one person building a brand so that someday you can have an equity event or whatever. Like we've talked about all those things. Like, what do we do now? Like we build a really cool brand that's recognized. Do we sell it to some bad actor? No, that's not. I mean, maybe that would be good for us financially, but it's not really an option for us. We want to keep it going, keep the honesty, transparency, quality, and raise high quality nutrient dense food. And it's not about a big payday. We got to be able to live a good life, and you have to be able to attract people. So we have 401k, we have health benefits, we have a fair salary. We have an amazing team right now. We have 20 people on our team and they're all amazing. I like pinch myself every day going like, there's not one weak link on our team. They're all really great people and they want to be here and they could probably go somewhere else and make more money, but they like to be part of this. And that's great.
Awesome. Well, let's talk a little bit more about the business because Stemple Creek started out as ranch and then and when you were working with us, we were buying our meat directly from you and selling it retail. But then COVID kind of changed everything. And I'm curious how the pandemic, how it impacted your business. I mean, it created a ton of disruption across the food system, but how did that period transform your business strategy? What changes did you have to implement? And are those still the changes that you've kept? I mean, since the pandemic's ended.
Yeah, it's a great question. And a little bit of background about us is when we started this company 15 years ago, Lisa and I both had real jobs that were helping us fund it. We were working like 80, 90 hours a week with young kids. We would do anything to get people to come to the ranch. We did free tours every Sunday. We'd barbecue meat and get people to come and learn about us. And that kind of helped us build the brand. And working with people like Electric City, working with people like B Miller, working with people like Local Butcher, getting on menus like Chez Panisse, getting on menus like Zuni Cafe, doing the Marin Farmers Market, which is high exposure to high-end consumers that love our product, that love our story. And we had a website. And one of the things that Lisa and I always said is if we're going to create this brand, so Stemple Creek Ranch brand is about 15 years old. Me and Lisa are the only owners of it. My wife, Lisa, who's a vital part of the business, helped create the whole thing. I did the ranching start, and she did all of the other part and made it. I'm really good at ideas and really good at dropping the ball, and she's really good at catching everything and going with it, and she's also really good at ideas. Anyway, we started selling, it was one beef a week. We'd do 3/4 of beef at the farmer's market. We'd have this stuff left over. What do we do? It was in our garage in our house. And so we'd have my old pharmaceutical boxes from my old job. We'd put styrofoam boxes, we'd pack them full of meat, and we'd ship them to our friends that wanted meat, around. And that was kind of like our online beginning. And then when COVID came around, it was like, okay, well, this is a major deal. Like we grew 5 or 6 times on our online presence in one 3-month period.
Wow.
And then after COVID ended, it went down 2, maybe 1 time or 2 times. So we kept a lot of that business. And then now, like this last year, we're gaining momentum again. This last year, we beat our COVID numbers. So that's really, really exciting. It's like 1,000% growth from 5 years ago. And really, like, our business would be dramatically different than it is today if we sold everything direct to consumers, because we could charge a little bit more. Right now we sell to wholesalers, which are like grocery stores and others, which we love, and they've really helped us a lot. But then they mark it up 20 to 60%, and they make all of that margin. Whereas if a consumer is used to going and paying $12 a pound for ground beef, I'm getting $6, or $7. So we're basically just barely making pennies on it, but the other guy is making a lot, which is part of retail, and I'm happy with that. And they deserve that because they have all the infrastructure, employees, everything else. Our business would be dramatically different if we had even a couple million more dollars of that high margin. Would really change our bottom line.
So obviously you went to the retail side where, a lot of ranchers, they probably never meet the person who's actually eating their steaks. There was this high touch role, and the era of the corner butcher shop renaissance. You mentioned before Aaron Rocchino over at local butcher shop there in the Bay Area. There's Eric Miller, another friend of ours at V Miller Meats in Sacramento. Obviously, Electric City Butcher, our shop down in Santa Ana. I mean, these were all instrumental in building kind of the local California meat brands. But all 3 of those shops have either changed hands or closed. So what is the future of retail meat, and how can people buy Stemple Creek, and how will they buy Stemple Creek in 5 years?
Yeah. Oh, and Lindy and Grundy was one of the OGs too.
That was the first one.
And that's where we got our name really, because they were a marketing machine, and people know about us because we've supplied all their beef and lamb. So where does it go in the future? So we're very welcoming. We want people to come to our ranch. We want to be first person certified. In 5 years, I would love to give up my organic certification, my GAP certification, my Audubon bird friendly certification, my land to market certification, my humane certified. I would love to give up all of that because it's a bunch of paperwork and nightmare. And I'd love for people like you, Steve, to be able to like, oh yeah, I buy from the Stemple Creek Ranch because it's 100% transparent. It's first person certified. My friend Joe Morris from Morris Grass Fed told me, I kind of stole that line from them, the first person certified, but I love it so much. It's like, we want to know our customers, and we want it to be first person certified. Like, you see us, you trust us, you like the flavor, you like the practices, and you want to vote with your money to have more of that done. That's going to be our direction. We're going to keep all of our retailers that are our current partners, and we're going to keep growing. And if it makes sense, we'll add more. And then we'll grow our online presence, and we'll grow our farmers market presence. We really want to do a farmers market in Southern California. Like, I would love to get into Santa Monica or a couple others down there so that we can have a place that people can come to and buy our products. When you look at our online orders and you look at all of our competitors, we're friendly competitors around the country. Southern California, Bay Area, New York City, Florida, and a little bit of Texas is where it makes up the big majority of people online purchasing these things. We have some of the best grass-fed beef there is on the planet, and our pork is unbelievable. I don't know if you know, but we have a lot of Llano Seco genetics. So Llano Seco went out of business. There were a smaller farm like us that specialized in pork, but it was the best pork on the planet, in my opinion. And we bought a
Yes.
bunch of their sows, and we have their same recipe and we have their same genetics, and our product is equally as good or maybe sometimes even better, depending, because we let them get bigger. But it's amazing. Like our pork chops are amazing. Our lamb is really scalable, and we have amazing lamb as well. And all of that we can ship direct to people in the Bay Area, or you can pick it up, or one of our retailers. There's about 20 different 30 different grocery stores around. We want everybody to support the people that are supporting us, but we definitely want, if you want something special or you want to buy direct from the farmer, we want to sell it to you. And that's how we're going to stay in business. That's how we're going to grow and expand and do more good work and get more acreage and keep honesty, transparency, and quality as we go.
I remember when you sat down with me and my business partner, Michael Puglisi, back in, I think it was 2018. And you said to us, guys, what do you think of this regenerative agriculture word, this phrase? And it was really in its infancy at that point. I mean, not a lot of people were talking about regenerative ag, at least not, you didn't see it on retail packaging. We were all questioning if it would become that significant of a brand. And now today, I feel like a lot of people use regenerative more often than sustainable. It's kind of almost trumped that. And I know that the state just came up with a regenerative agriculture definition in California. Have you been following any of that? Do you have an opinion on whether or not we need an official definition for regenerative agriculture? And does that help the grass-finished beef market in California?
I haven't, it's a good question. I haven't followed it to know what the actual definition is, but I will tell you that every good thing gets greenwashed eventually. And I've seen some regenerative labels on products that I'm like, that is a crock of shit. That's not regenerative. And I know some of the people personally that were on the regenerative task force that came up with the definition. So I can't tell, I haven't read the definition and I kind of ignore it because I just tell our story, like our story. And I will say that it was a very conventional group working on the definition of regenerative. So I need to read it and tell you, but I would say it's probably looser than it should be on that. But
yeah, a lot of my listeners are probably horrified when you say you don't, you've seen product out there with labels, with claims, and it's not what it says it is. I mean, this is the biggest fear. We're paying a lot of extra money sometimes to know that products are being raised responsibly and ethically, and that there's this false sense of transparency. What do you say to that when folks go to the grocery store? Like, how can we be more confident in the products that we're buying? What's the best?
yeah, I'd say you got to know the hand that feeds you. It depends how. I mean, you have to go with whatever labels you have to go with to feed your family at certain times. And it's probably better to have a regenerative or, one of those labels if you can. If you can go to the farm, especially with eggs, go to the farm that raises your eggs and look at the chickens, or go to the ranch that raises your beef and look at the cattle and see what it smells like. See there's a big sign at the end of the driveway that says Stemple Creek Ranch. I'm proud of this. I want to show people what we're doing. And I'm far from perfect. One day you drive in and there might be something that's really not good that you'll see because it's a ranch and it's out of my control. We're dancing with Mother Nature. Like, who knows? There might be a dead cow on the side of the road or a dead, like, I can't control that, but it's real and authentic. But if you drive by places that smell really bad, most likely it's not a regenerative ranch. And if you drive by places that have big barns and you don't see chickens out and it's not labeled of whose chickens they are, you better question where you're buying your eggs and what brands are claiming that they're pasture, regenerative, cage-free, pasture-raised, organic, and you never see a bird out of the chicken house. So there's a lot of games played with marketing and transparency and definitions. That's why I want to do the first person certified. And regenerative, in 5 years, regenerative might be on our label, might not be. Because it's not how I want to be known. I want to be known as doing like the right thing and having the honest, transparent, true cost of meat that's delicious, and people know what they're getting. They can ask any question and look in any garage and come to the ranch at any time and see what's going on, and hopefully want that level of transparency.
What do you say to people who challenge grass finished beef? I mean, do you feel like this could feed everybody on the planet, or is grass finished beef a luxury?
It's not a luxury, but it can't feed everybody on the planet today. But it could if there was less subsidized, row crops in the Midwest. Like the native prairies could have feed a lot. How many million buffaloes was there?
Yeah.
300 million?
Yeah, at least 80 million.
Yeah, and so like that was native prairie back then. And would I say it's all going to be fat and marble and delicious? Probably not, but we could raise way more proteins than we currently do in this state and other places by grazing more efficiently and better. And I'm actually really excited about that because there's new technology coming into place that I haven't implemented yet, but I'm an early second adopter, so I'm going to implement in the next year or two. It's called like virtual fencing. So you actually put collars on them like your dog collar on a cow, and you could control their pasture from a computer. And like we could graze like half of Southern California that's not being grazed right now, that could turn that oxidized grass into healthy protein and decrease fire danger. And I mean, is there fires in Southern California? Yeah. There was big bands of sheep and big bands of cattle and stuff that would go through and graze a lot of that country that just they're not there anymore. So that grass is photosynthesizing for a little while it's growing, but otherwise it's dead and oxidized and just emitting into the atmosphere, not pulling CO2 back into the ground. So, and not producing any high quality food. It's like, well, why would you waste that?
So wait, you're gonna put like basically bracelets or necklaces on a cow and let it wander around in a virtual fence and graze lands that could prevent forest fires? Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And maybe even get paid to do it, because people get out there with a weed eater and a tractor and burn carbon to cut their grass or cut their weeds. It's like put some cows or sheep or goats and let them do it for you, and it helps regenerate the soil. You'll actually create more protein in the animal. You won't be wasting that stuff. It's good for the environment. I mean, grass is meant to be grazed. It's not meant to sit there.
Yeah, a lot of people don't realize that when they see, it's like animals should be eating that grass, but they're not around anymore. We've gotten rid of all of them.
And the state is so messed up when it comes to managing ecosystems. Like there's hardly any deer left in those places too, because there's so many mountain lions and you can't touch a mountain lion. And I'm not a proponent of like, oh yeah, let's kill every mountain lion. But if you have an ecosystem like the 405 and the 5 and like it's a tiny little, it's not, I hear this argument all the time, well, they were here before us. Well, yeah, but we came in and we screwed it up because we eliminated all these wildlife corridors. So if there's 10 deer right here and there's one mountain lion, all of a sudden there's no deer and there's a few jackrabbits, and then the mountain lion crosses the road and gets hit on the 405, and people are like, oh my God, this is a travesty. Well, what about all the stuff that they ate because you didn't manage them, and there's 10 mountain lions starving over?
Do you still hunt?
Oh yeah, I love hunting, and it's one of my favorite pastimes. And I harvest very few animals. Now, I mean, I shoot maybe one deer a year. I could shoot 10 if I wanted to, but I'd probably shoot maybe one deer a year. And
well, how did hunting shape your view on food?
I don't think it ever really did shape my view on food as a child. It was just, you have a boy, and it was a young boy in an environment that you were like, testosterone takes over, and you go out and you hunt and you kill stuff. I'm not that way anymore now. There's like books that say at some point in your life, you put your gun in the cabinet and you pick up a shovel and you create more habitat and you grow things. Like I grow so much more wildlife because I love wildlife, to see it. And I like to have lots of bounty. If we decide to hunt it, we can hunt it. But our big part of our business is creating habitat for other animals to live with us, biodiverse pastures, biodiverse stream beds. And a goal of mine is to make the creek so healthy that the steelhead and the salmon are coming back. And we're starting to see that. And it's exciting. And I want beavers here on our
Mm.
ranch land, and beavers will totally change our landscape. And a lot of agriculturalists hate beavers. They don't want beavers, but I want beavers. And yes, there's going to be some problems associated with beavers, but there's going to be a lot of benefit when it comes to changing the water cycle and growing more forages and having a biodiverse region and having better fish habitat and cleaner water and less flooding and all of these things. So I'm pretty excited about it. That's kind of my pipe dream, is to be able to have steelhead in Stemple Creek again before I die. Probably got another 30 years to do it. So I hope I have another 30 years to do it.
Well, there, I mean, that is one of the things that, having taken up hunting later in life, I mean, when I was a kid, I had friends who hunted actively and I would go along. But the thing that I really appreciate now is seeing, and you may take this for granted because you live out on the land all the time, but you see the seasonality of things and you see the changes and you witness firsthand the impacts that nature and people have on the environment. And hunting has really taught me that, like every season going out and noticing how many animals there are, what kind of plants there are, what's the temperature this year versus last year. It's that cyclical returning to the same spots. And for
Yeah.
me, that's been huge, and just better appreciating nature. It's probably as close as I've come to being a farmer, where I actually see, you know, what's changing in the work that I'm doing and the work that, the things that I have no control over, but have to
Yeah.
respond to.
Yeah. I will tell you one thing that's definitely changed in my life as I've gotten older is I take way better care of the animal now when I harvest them than I ever have, because I enjoy eating them. So like when I harvest them, they're managed as if they were like a beef that we're going to put into the food system. Like, the better care you take of your animals that you harvest and the less stress that they have when you harvest them. And like nowadays, if there's a deer running, I might not shoot it even if it was the one I wanted, because I don't want the meat to be, have a lot of histamines and stuff from running. I want to take a good clean shot, hit it right in the neck, have it be over so there's no bloodshot other places, and it tastes good because I really enjoy game and it's giving its life for us to feed our family. And so, yeah, same with birds. Like I love hunting birds, but I also take way better care of the birds now than I did when I was younger, and they taste way better. And it's fun to be a culinary artist and cook things that people traditionally say they don't like and have them like it. So duck is one of my favorite wild games now.
Wow. Do you have a favorite season on the ranch?
I love the ranch 365 days a year, but the ranch is a lot easier for me this time of year because the grass is growing and tall, and we have it's way less unknowns. Like we know when our last rain, we know what's gonna grow. It's the dance we do with Mother Nature every year. Like some of it's predictable based on historical trends, some of it is not. I love the fall because I love migration and I love hunting. So the fall and early winter, and I love the spring right now. Once it gets summer, I love the ocean. I want to go to the ocean and fish in the fog and sit there and catch big salmon and halibut and stuff. And then like September, I mean, my seasons of my life are planned around the seasons that we can hunt and fish, honestly. So the fall is when everything is open. Deer season starts the second week of August and goes till the third week of September. And then there's usually deer somewhere else that we'll go hunt or try to harvest. And then elk season starts around September 1st, which is cool. And then duck season starts the third week in October and goes until the fourth week in January. So that's a really good one for us. And then like now we're like, okay, what do we do? Hunt wild pigs. There's no seasons right now, but I love it for growing the antlers. So the shed horns fall, so we can go look for shed horns this time of year. The other time of year I really love is the first rain in the fall because the mushrooms start to come. I love to forage chanterelle and porcini mushrooms.
Oh, I
So
didn't
that's
know
like
you
a real
foraged.
fun. I'm addicted to foraging. I love to forage chanterelles and porcinis. And now morels are starting, so I'm gonna go for morels up in up in the mountains in the next 2 weeks, 3 weeks. But yeah, I'm kind of in touch with nature and the cycle of life, and that's what drives me.
So basically, your favorite season is every season at Stemple Creek.
There's always something to do. There's always something to do.
Well, Loren, it's been awesome chatting with you today and touching base on all the new things at Stemple Creek. How can folks get your beef?
We have a lot of great retailers. The best way to get our beef is to go directly to our website and order what you want, or connect with us, or go to one of our farmers markets. If you order it from us, we ship it up. As long as your order's in before Sunday night, we ship it on Monday. You'll have it by Tuesday anywhere in California, but we'll ship nationwide. And for holiday gifts, you can give it to your friends anywhere in the country. And that's the best way to support us. But any of the local retailers that you see carry Stemple Creek brand. And I also promote every other really good grass-fed brand. I try and promote the stuff that's grown in the US. And I don't pick on other brands, but if you ever want to know off the record other brands I wouldn't buy, I can tell you that too.
Well, and I can attest that I think Loren's meat, his beef especially, is some of the best I've ever had. Definitely the best grass-finished beef in California, in my opinion. His lamb is fantastic too. And if he's got Llano Seco genetics in his pork, I would vouch for that as well. Those are some amazing proteins that you've been raising. So thanks again for spending time with me today, Loren, and looking forward to keeping in touch. All you out there looking for those regenerative agriculture products and proteins, definitely check Stemple Creek out. There's somebody you should know well. So thanks again, Loren. Good to talk to you.
Thanks, buddy. Appreciate it. Yeah. Have a good one.
And that wraps up another episode of Enlightened Omnivore. A special thanks to all my subscribers for listening in this week. You can all read more about everything omnivorous on my weekly Substack newsletter found at enlightenedomnivore.substack.com.